105.9, your number one family radio.
A very warm welcome to Health Break. This is where we get to talk health, just to keep you very much health conscious. On the program, we're doing a follow-up on one of the topics we had some weeks back, sickle cell anemia. And I have in the studio a very, very important guest who would be taking us through this today, talking about Mr. Ashikodi Onyekachi. He is a sickle cell warrior. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us on Health Break.
Thank you. Thank you.
And particularly, I'm so excited because you are willing to share your story. Living with sickle cell anemia for about 5 decades.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. Do you agree with me?
Yeah,
I'm actually smiling because it takes courage to decide to share. It takes courage to decide to tell people about how you've been able to beat sickle cell anemia.
Yeah, it's what I've signed up to doing now. Like 2 months ago, I was 50. And I just decided, man, it's that time I let people know, what I went through and how I've been able to overcome.
Fantastic. So 50.
Yeah.
And I'm saying a big wow. Can you tell us a bit about how you've been able to do this for 5 decades?
Well, I would say, number one is God factor. God really helped me, regardless of whatever money you get or whatever you go for your medical checkups or medical care. If God is not on your side, there's no how you can live this long. God has been on my side, and I also thank my parents for being there, for not letting me, not considering how much they need to spend to make sure I get this far. I think it's God and the care of people around me. I had a lot of people around me, my siblings, my friends. Had a lot of doctors' friends too that were there for me. So I think I just find grace in the sight of God.
Okay, you emphasizing on love and care.
Yeah.
That has been very important, to enable you to go through this.
Yes, like I said, my parents were really very loving. They did allow me to suffer. Whenever I'm down on sickness, on this crisis, they always get to the hospital in time. And I think it's the timely intervention they normally give to me. Seeing a medical practitioner that to some extent has helped me this far.
Okay. Just thinking about what you just said now, love, care, a lot of support from your family members, your parents, friends, you have doctor friends, and I'm also thinking at this point about, that aspect of some families having more than one person affected by sickle cell. So in your family, can you tell us, is there any other person aside
No,
you?
my family we are 60 number, we have the second child, but it just me, unfortunately.
Okay, just you.
Yeah.
Okay, can you take us through when the discovery happened? At what point did that diagnosis come?
Well, the proper diagnosis came when I was like 7 years old. But before then, I had this constant temperature that I was always running when I was an infant. I convulsed a lot, growing up before that age 7. And, normally they would tell me to be this kind of witchcraft or whatever stuff.
So before that diagnosis came,
yes,
there were issues of or talks about witchcraft.
As
little as below 7, you could understand that what was going around.
I also had stories after I had grown up. What my mother told me stories about my infant days. Where they will, they had some razor cuts on me, because they say I'm always convulsing because of the constant temperature I was always having at that time, So they will make this concoction of, and put coconut oil, with concoction, and they rub it up me and all that. But as time went on, my daddy was able to make some research, make some doctors, do some tests, and they now discovered that that this was what it was. And from then it was medical interventions. Although once in a while we do some evac drugs, because a lot of suggestion, people want you to come out well. So a lot of
there were recommendations.
There were recommendations, other herbs that we source from Shagamu, from a whole lot of places, that I also took, But by and large, I wouldn't say is this or is a herbal, that made me turn out well. But all I can say is that God's factor is also strong in all this.
Okay, we are talking sickle cell anemia, and I have with me Mr. Ashikodi Onyekachi. He's a sickle cell warrior. He has lived with sickle cell anemia for about 5 decades. He just turned 50, some weeks back, and he definitely is attributing this to the grace of God and having to do certain things. Like you just mentioned, medical doctors, in your life. You talked about the support from your parents, having to go to the hospital from time to time. Because I know, particularly for those living with sickle cell, there are times of crisis.
Yes.
So, can you take us through that a bit? Some of the crises you've had?
Yes, I had a lot of crises, growing up. Let me just make this for emphasis. Let me do this. In 1997, I had a very serious crisis that almost took my life. Not for the timely intervention of a doctor that lived nearby. My PCV had dropped to like 6.3%, and I slumped one of the evenings, and I was rushed to the guy's house for prompt intervention. It was serious. Even my parents were scared. They thought that was the end of it. But like I also say, God factor is always a play for me. At the end of the day, I was able to pull off the whole stuff, and and life came back to normal. I never had blood transfusion until when I left secondary school. When I left secondary school, I was like age 19. That was the first blood transfusion I had. I was preparing to write my JAM examination. I was really giving myself to intense study when I broke down, and I was taken to the hospital. And when my PCV was checked, my PCV was low, and that was the first time I had blood transfusion when I was 19. The second time, this other incident that I told you.
That was 1997.
That was 1997, when I was like 20-something years. That one was critical, because that was when the PCV crashed to 6.something%. I was almost dead. But somehow I was able to pull it off, and life got to normal. And from that time till now, once in a while you have serious crisis, but with proper medications and good doctors around you, I pull off, and life always turned to normal. So I've been fortunate to have good doctors around me, and I've also been fortunate to have resources to go around it. So we give God all the praise.
Okay.
That it's been.
So much emphasis on, the God factor, which is very important.
Very, very
because
important.
That you definitely would want to emphasize on that one. Knowing that there are people who have sickle cell anemia, and maybe they do just 1 decade, 2 decades, but you've actually been able to beat this particular disorder, and then we are talking to you right now, which is a very, very noble thing. But then, are there advice that you give to people who also have this disorder from time to time? Because it also looks like you pay attention to the medical aspect a lot.
Yes.
So maybe we should talk about that as well.
Well, the first thing I learned when I was age 8 was by I had an Indian doctor then that was taking care of me. He taught me a lot of things, how to really take care of myself. He said I shouldn't be down with malaria. Malaria is the major issue that brings crisis. So if you can prevent malaria attack, I think to some extent you can prevent being down with crisis. So number 1 is preventing malaria attack. Number 2 is not exposing yourself to extreme weather, cold or heat. Number 3 is to eat well, rest well, and don't get yourself excited. Always be compacted. Don't let anything tense you up. Being tensed also aggravates make you come down on or being anxious.
That can bring up crisis.
Yes, that can bring up crisis.
Okay.
So someone living with crisis should always be calm, not allowing pressure or anything to tense the person up, because being tensed, may aggravate you being the person being sick. So that's generally what I did. Eating well too, and resting well. I don't allow anything to disturb me.
As much as possible.
Yes, yeah. So
okay.
So
very interesting. I have a sickle cell warrior in the studio today. We're talking about sickle cell anemia, Mr. Ashikodi Onyekachi. He's 50 years old, and he's talking about how he's been able to beat this disorder, living for 5 decades, and trying to encourage people out there that it's possible to actually pull through, and being positive as much as possible, living positively with the disorder is very key to actually have your life expectancy increase as much as possible. Talking about sickle cell anemia, 7 years old, that is when the medical diagnosis came. Medically, you were diagnosed to have sickle cell anemia. Okay, it's been years, since you started managing this particular disorder. Can you tell us about the management of sickle cell in Nigeria? What you think?
Yeah, the management of sickle cell in Nigeria, like I said, it boils down to getting to know the doctor that is vast in this issue. Most doctors, when I was much younger, I didn't really know about it, but I was fortunate to have met doctors that that had some knowledge about it. So in this country, one, we don't have a whole lot of people don't have resources to really go to the hospital. When they have this crisis, they tend to just go to the chemist and all that, and those people don't understand because crisis is your vein or your arteries being blocked by the sickle form of the red blood cell. So it needs a whole lot of attention, medical attention, for you to be able to get that pain and flush the system. So mainly anybody that is down with crisis, normally what is advised is having been dripped so that the drip can help to cleanse the system. So, but most people are not aware. They tend it to be witchcraft. They tend it to be a demonic attack and all that. So, and that is what has made people not to really get over this whole stuff. But medically, I pray that if we have good facilities in the hospital and we have good doctors that are trained to take care of these sickle cell patients, I think it's not a death sentence. It's just care, and they will be able to pull through.
Okay, that you saying a lot of persons, because of maybe lack of resources or because of ignorance, they would rather go to the chemist or go to the pharmacist. That's you also saying that that's not the point of call. Yeah,
that's not the point. You have to see a medical doctor that is versed in that particular issue. I advise anybody that's has a child or is suffering from sickle cell, they should always make sure they see a doctor, because that they are the one that are trained to take care of these issues.
Okay, so I'd like to just possibly explaining or describing what exactly sickle cell is in simple terms. Sickle cell anemia is one of a group of inherited disorders known as sickle cell disease. It affects the shape of the red blood cells, which carry oxygen to all parts of the body, affecting that red blood cells which carry oxygen. You know how very important oxygen is to the body. So it means that it's a disorder that is actually very serious.
Yes.
Okay, so now I'd like to look at 150 million babies born annually with sickle cell anemia. That's the statistics. The last time I had this discussion on Health Break, I had a doctor in the studio, Dr. Rhoda Sukwo, who had actually also spoken about, this statistics, very screaming, 150 million babies born annually with sickle cell in Nigeria.
Yeah, that is the statistics, but I would not really attribute it to the couples. Most times medical scientists also help in giving wrong results. Because I've seen a whole lot of people that they thought that their genotype were compatible to get married.
Okay.
After having tested with the medical lab scientist, but at the end of the day, they have a child, and the child is a problem. Become a problem child, and at the end of the day, they now find out that both are AS and both are AS.
So you're saying that some couples, take the pains to go do the test, to see if they are compatible.
Yeah, because
but then we're having issues with the test.
Yeah, because the awareness is high now. So most churches even encourage it. They go run tests. Some people go. Some parents also encourage it. But most times, most test results comes out to be faulty, and this is what make these statistics now to be high. Because I don't think if any reasonable person will want to bring a child that's going to be problem to you. Because most people take effort, like I said, to make sure they don't go through that route. But unfortunately, medical lab scientists also helped to make this thing to make the statistics to increase, because the results they are turning out are not good.
Okay, but there's also that part of when you do a particular test, the result comes out, there's an opportunity to go test again.
Yeah, most people don't take that pain. They'll just test one time and that'll be all for them. So, and that one time, because they have gone to teaching hospital, they have gone to a well-known hospital, medical lab scientist, and at the end of the day, the result didn't come out. The results they have, they just feel that that is it until they start having children, and then I find out that the result was not proper.
Okay. Another part that we dwelled on the last time we had this conversation on this program was, the issue with teenage pregnancy, early marriage. That's what Dr. Rhoda had actually emphasized, that could be another area to look at. What do you think about that?
That is true, because early pregnancy, most people didn't know, they didn't go for test. So because it was maybe an accidental whatever,
wasn't planned pregnancy.
So and they didn't know their genotypes, and that also could make the statistics to be at the rise.
Okay, I'd like to ask at this point, possibly when we come back from the break, we have to take a break at this point, but then I have a very key question for you to ask about what you're doing. Is there anything you're doing to solve some of the issues that we are seeing around? Like you talked about lab scientists, the test results coming from laboratories might not just be effective enough or might not be real, so couples don't even know what their genotype is, and eventually there's a mismatch happening, and we're seeing the increase in numbers. 150 million babies annually.
Yeah.
So we'll come back and continue the conversation. Yes, I still have Mr. Ashikodi Onyekachi here, a sickle cell warrior. Do stay with us. Health Break returns shortly.
I am loved. I am blessed. My Nigerian heritage I respect. I close my eyes and I dream of what this great nation Nigeria could be. And slowly, I become the change that I expect to see. I dream that we would boast a strength of character for the world to see. The truth of love that lies in you and me. I am Nigerian, so I stand proud. My name is Lami, and this is my inspiration. What is yours?
So good to know you're still there listening to Health Break on a Tuesday morning, and we are talking sickle cell anemia. I have in the studio a diarist who's sharing his story. 5 decades, living 5 decades, he just turned 50, and he's been beaten sickle cell anemia hands down, and he's sharing his story, how he's been able to pull through, particularly the crisis period. Persons living with sickle cell anemia usually have crisis from time to time, and he's talked about the need to ensure that people go to the hospital to actually seek care. That has actually helped him a whole lot, having love, support, care from family members, friends, has also helped him pull through. Okay, so I'll come back to you now, possibly to ask, is there something you're doing to see that some of the issues you've raised are taken care of?
Yes, like I said, the key is not to go down with malaria, and
that's you. I'm talking about possibly helping other persons.
Yes, that is also number one. Number one, they should ensure that they shouldn't go down with malaria attack. Make sure that their surroundings are well kept. Children, should sleep in the mosquito-treated net, to prevent being bitten by mosquitoes. They should eat well, they should eat well, and don't rule out seeing the doctor, regardless of let it be just that the child is just hot, malaria. You don't conclude that it's malaria until you've done a test. So they should make sure that the hospital is the first place of call for anybody living with sickle cell anemia.
Okay, so how do you think we can check this statistics? You talked about laboratories, having very functional laboratories where test results that are gotten are reliable. What other ways do you think we can actually check this issue in terms of the statistics we are seeing?
Well, campaign, public enlightenment. We should not relent to emphasize that until the check is being done, medical check is being done over and over again, people shouldn't get married. Because that is the number one thing. If you know your actual genotype, and that will help, not bringing to life a sickle cell patient. So it's just for awareness. We should enlighten people more. Every kind of medium, we need to enlighten people. Let's enlighten them, because that is just the only thing to do. If you know your genotype and you marry somebody that your genotype is compatible, there's no way a sickle cell patient can be.
And that's the emphasis on the fact that it's preventable.
Yes.
We can actually prevent this
by
prevent this knowing one's genotype and not coming together with persons that the genotypes are not compatible as much as possible, avoiding that. Before we came on air, you talked about what you've seen in terms of when you were first diagnosed at 7 and living through that teenagehood, and now you're an adult. You talked about that aspect of where you see improvement in terms of medical care. Can you talk about that a bit?
Right now, the medical care has improved. I know they have some scan that they do now on people's head, because there's some things that they see, the doctors, they know about this. They do some scan to know if any child living with sickle cell has the possibility of having stroke or not having stroke, because there is a lot of complications to this sickle cell thing. Some people come down with stroke, some people come down with sores, some people come down with a whole lot of stuff. So, but right now we have some gadgets that the doctors have, some equipment that that can check if there's any possibility of the child having stroke and all that. So there's a whole lot of improvement now. So I just pray that people will take their children to teaching hospital. They have all this in the teaching hospital in Oyo now. So they do scan in their head. They do a lot of stuff to know if the child, is progressing normally. So if the child is not progressing well,
you're talking about the point of being pregnant.
No, I'm talking about
afterwards.
Afterwards, the child. So how to properly manage them. Pregnancy, like I said, if you have a wrong combination, before pregnancy, there is 50-50 chance. Like what they normally tell us, if you have a couple that are both AS, it's 50-50 chance. So it's like tossing a die. Probability of having 6 is 1/4.
Do you think that's the way people should go? Because prevention is what we are actually emphasizing on.
Yes, like I said, they shouldn't do
Take
that
chances.
because that is risky. Then there's another one that they do if both couples that didn't know when they got married and they're not scared to bring up a child that is a sickle cell. There's something also they check. Maybe when the child is forming, there's also some check they do to make sure
at the point of pregnancy.
At the point of pregnancy, to make sure if the child is sickle cell, as at that time, maybe I think few weeks to 3 months, they can run that check. And if it's not what they are expecting, then they can evacuate. So there's some other medical stuff like that the doctors do to make sure these things are prevented.
So what you're saying is that it's getting better, but then people need to be more enlightened.
Yes.
That's your emphasis.
Yes,
so they know that they do not have to come together if their blood genotypes do not match.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to ask what you think about the stem cell transplant. That's like a solution at the moment, an intervention that can actually help persons living with sickle cell. What do you think about the stem cell transplant?
That is a solution, but it's very expensive and not every family.
Not an option. Because you just talked about resources helped you.
Yes.
You still have families where they cannot afford medical care.
Yes. So it's not an option because it's expensive, it runs into $1 million, and you also have to get a donor. The donor will be a family member. You can imagine the risk of having to take the bone marrow from a sibling. The chances of survival is slim, and you that is going to be transplanted, the chances of survival. So it's a whole lot of, it's very complicated.
Okay,
so
quite complicated.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Ashikodi Onyekachi, sickle cell warrior on Health Break. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
I believe it has inspired someone. They're listening. Very key message you brought on the program this morning, talking about the need for people to take precaution, prevention, the laboratories, the need to have those test results come out well so that couples know their genotype before they get into marriage to avoid, bringing a sickle cell carrier into the world. Quite a lot you've actually shared with us today, but then at this point, your final words, what you have to say, and how you intend to spread the message beyond radio.
Yeah, my final way is that, like right now, for me, I've started my own enlightenment. I have a YouTube channel where I've spoken about my stories and all that. And I just pray that churches should do more, families should do more, society should do more. We should all do more so that, we'll prevent getting a sickle cell child, because it's cumbersome. It's really very hard for you to take care of somebody that is challenged with sickle cell anemia.
I will say congratulations, I wish you more life, more years ahead. 50 is a big deal, really. Fantastic. Mr. Ashikodi Onyekachi, sickle cell warrior, it was a pleasure having you on Health Week. All the best. We look forward to what you have to do in the years ahead, in the days ahead, and particularly people will get inspired by your story as you share.
Thank you.
Even more. My name is Ima Dem. Just stay with us right here. It's Health Break.
When competition gets tougher, we step things up.
How cool!
105.9 zillion notches higher.
We are ahead of the competition, resonating pure, family-friendly content.
Oh, yup! We finally have got your back. It's Inspiration 105.9 FM.